Alright, so how to avoid your newsletter from landing in the spam folder in 2025. So let's get right into it and provide you some tips to make sure that every time you write your newsletter, it doesn't land there. So, how to avoid your newsletter from landing in the spam folder in 2025. So imagine just this. You work hard day and night, right, on your email campaign for the week, and you get no responses from your subscribers. All you get is crickets, right? And what's happening there is that there's probably a high chance that your email landed in the spam folder instead of in the inbox. So all that hard work was for nothing. So in this video, I want to share with you tips and tricks you can do to avoid the pesky spam folder. So let's start. So number one is a very simple, but many people miss this when they're using custom domains, and that is to warm up your domain before sending, right? So what do I mean by this? So if you're using a custom domain, so instead of using like, if you're using Beehive, right, you could use their domain like newsletters.beehive.com, right? That's their domain that you're using right there. But let's say you're using newsletters at newsletters.com. That's a custom domain right there. So if you've never warmed up your domain, right, then there's a high likely chance that that domain is going to land straight into the spam folder. Well, not the domain, the email is going to land in the spam folder, right? So what you want to do there is, of course, something called just warming up. So instead of sending 500 emails on day one, right, start slow and build trust with the inbox, right? So slowly start by 20, by 30, slowly increasing it, right? And then once you're like, high enough, then you'll be able to send like thousands of emails per day or hundreds of emails per day without a problem, right? And what's awesome is that you can use a tool like Beehive, right? If you're using a custom domain, right, to warm up the domain inside Beehive, right? So Beehive has this feature that allows you to warm up your custom domain with them, right? If you use their default domain that they provide you, the free one, right, it works. A lot of people use that domain and it lands pretty often in the inbox, right? It's really rare that I don't get emails from Beehive that land in the spam folder, right? So yeah, and also, you just want to start slow, right? Because if you send 500 a day, right, there's a high likely chance that that's going to trigger a warning for Gmail and other email service providers that, hey, you might be spamming, right? So the next thing is you want to keep your subject lines clean. So what do I mean by this? You want to avoid spammy words like free or like make money, right, really fast, right? Like these, of course, are very common spammy like subject lines, and Google and other email service providers, right, are trained. Their algorithms are trained on this, right? Where if they see a lot of this spam, right, they're gonna be like, this is probably spam, and they're gonna move you to the spam folder directly, right? Also, you want to write like a human, conversational, and simple and honest on your subject lines, right? You could be like something like a subject line you could use is like, the best way to avoid the spam folder, right? Those just an example, right? And also you can use tools, right, like subjectline.com to test and score your subject lines, right? So this is a neat tool that you can just use. It's free. You could just type the subject line and evaluate how it works, right? Let's test it out. So spam folder. Yes. Okay. So I'm not going to give you my email right now, right? But it's free to try. I just forgot about this part that you have to give their email, right? But yeah, once you provide your email, right, you can, you'll get the results of it if it's good or not good, right? I just don't want to show my email right here. Also, you want to use a professional email address, right? Again, you don't really have to, right? If you're using like free tools like Beehive or Kit, right? You can use their domain, but if you want to use a professional email address for your newsletter, you could go right ahead and do that, right? Something like like at daniel@seo.com, let's say, right? That's just an example, right? Instead of newsletter123@gmail.com, right? Because this is from Gmail, right? But a custom domain will be something like sweatyseo.com. Again, you want to use a domain, right, and not something like Gmail, right? So why this? It just builds credibility, right? And it builds trust, right? When people see a custom domain, right, they know that you invested some money into this, and also it just looks really nice. Again, you don't have to. You can use the default Beehive domain as well, right? You can use tools like Google Workspace or Zoho to create these email-based domains. So once you buy the domain, let's say you're using Squarespace or GoDaddy, right? Once you do that, you can sign up for Google Workspace or Zoho, right, to connect that domain and have an email service provider like Gmail to be this email service provider for you. So next, oh, before you do that, so you want to do this so that emails, when people respond to, let's say, a newsletter you send out, right, they'll respond to, you'll be able to see the emails that inside Gmail if you're using Google Workspace, right? The next thing is clean your email list regularly. So what do I mean by this? So you want to avoid any inactive subscribers from staying on your email list for a very long time, because that can hurt your deliverability. This was something that I was really worried about when I had my newsletter, right, about newsletters, right? So what I did was I built an automation for this, where every 6 months it will remove any inactive subscribers from my email list if they didn't interact with an email that I sent in the last 6 months, right? And again, this is just because I want to make sure I have good stats when I'm sending my emails, right? So yeah, you want to remove anyone who hasn't opened your last 10 to 15 emails, right? You could do this with automations again, or you can do this manually, like every 6 months, to manually remove any inactive subscribers from your email list, because you want to avoid them from ruining your reputation and hurting your stats as well. And next, and not last, right, you want to use your spam checkers. So there's actually a free tool right here you can use. I used this a couple of times, either in my 9 to 5 as well, to help clients. This just allows you to quickly see where your emails are going to land, right? If they're gonna land in the spam folder or not, right? It's very awesome to do. It's free. You could just use it and see if your emails are landing in the spam folder or not, right? And if they are, then you'll be able to, like, figure out what's going on and fix the issue and avoid future emails from going to spam folder. So that's pretty much it on how to avoid the spam folder, right? It's just, if you're using a custom domain, make sure it's warming up your domain. Again, if you want to make sure your subject lines are clean, right? And don't use spammy words. Number 3, of course, use a professional email address if you want. Again, you don't need to do this, but it just looks a little bit nicer, right? You can clean your email list regularly as well, and use spam checkers just to make sure your emails are landing in the inbox. So don't forget that you can start your newsletter by just clicking on the description down below, and you'll get like 3 months discount. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.